Chapter 1. The foreclosure notice arrived on a rainy Tuesday. It wasn't dramatic. No police officers, no television cameras, just a plain white envelope tucked beneath the front door of Alexander's Kitchen, the small family restaurant Sophia had called home for nearly 20 years. She picked it up before opening the restaurant for breakfast. Her stomach tightened the moment she recognized the bank's seal. "No," she whispered. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded the paper. Final notice. Unless the outstanding balance was settled within 21 days, ownership of the building would be transferred to the lender. The words blurred together. For several seconds, Sophia simply stood there, staring. This couldn't be happening. Not here, not to the restaurant her mother had built from nothing. She slowly looked around the dining room. The faded wooden tables, the framed family photographs hanging on the brick walls. The chalkboard menu her mother had insisted on rewriting every morning because she believed handwritten menus felt more personal. Even now, 3 years after her mother's death, Sophia refused to replace it. She could still hear her mother's laugh echoing through the kitchen whenever customers complimented the spicy seafood stew. Everything inside this building carried her mother's fingerprints. If the restaurant disappeared, it would feel like losing her all over again. The bell above the entrance jingled. Her father walked in carrying 2 bags of vegetables. Robert Alexander looked older than 60. His shoulders slumped, gray streaks covered his beard. The confident smile he once wore had disappeared years ago, replaced by permanent exhaustion. "You opened early," he said. Sophia didn't answer. She silently handed him the foreclosure notice. His expression changed immediately. His eyes dropped. He didn't even pretend to be surprised. That hurt more than anything. "You knew." He remained silent. "You knew this was coming." Still nothing. Sophia's voice cracked. "Dad?" Finally, he sighed. "I was trying to fix it." "Fix it?" She laughed bitterly. "We have 3 weeks before we lose everything." "I know." "No, you don't." She slapped the paper against the counter. "Mom spent 25 years building this place." "I know." "You keep saying you know." "I know." His sudden shout echoed through the empty restaurant. Then, just as quickly, he deflated. His shoulders sagged again. "I'm sorry." Silence settled between them. Rain tapped softly against the windows. Sophia took a slow breath. "How much?" Robert hesitated. She hated that hesitation. "How much do we owe?" "It's complicated. Tell me." He looked toward the kitchen. "Anywhere except at her." "It isn't only the bank." "What does that mean?" Another long silence. Finally, "There are other debts." "What other debts?" He swallowed hard. "The Kang family." Sophia frowned. "The Kang family. You've never heard of them." "Then explain." Robert rubbed both hands over his tired face. "Years ago, when Mom got sick, I borrowed money. From them." "How much?" He didn't answer. "Dad, it wasn't supposed to become this large." "How much?" His voice barely escaped. "More than I could ever repay." Sophia stared at him. "You borrowed from loan sharks?" "They aren't loan sharks." "Then who are they?" Robert looked directly into her eyes. "And the Kang organization." The name meant nothing to her, but the fear in his voice, that meant everything. Before she could ask another question, a black luxury sedan stopped outside the restaurant. Then another, then another. 3 identical cars, perfectly polished, their windows completely tinted. The engines shut off simultaneously. Every movement was synchronized. Sophia exchanged a confused glance with her father. His face turned ghost white. "No, no," he whispered it twice, as though hoping reality would change. It didn't. The rear door of the center vehicle opened. Several men in black suits stepped out first. They scanned the street with practiced precision. Only after they finished did another man emerge. Unlike the others, he wore a tailored charcoal suit with silver cufflinks. His hair was neatly combed. Not a wrinkle disturbed his clothing. He carried himself with quiet authority. He wasn't loud. He didn't need to be. Power surrounded him naturally. He walked toward the restaurant entrance. The bodyguards remained outside. The bell chimed gently as he stepped inside. His eyes moved across the room once before settling on Robert. "Mr. Alexander?" Robert lowered his head. "Chairman Kang." Sophia noticed immediately. Her father, who argued with suppliers without fear, who once chased armed robbers out of the restaurant with nothing but a frying pan, couldn't even lift his eyes. Chairman Kang acknowledged Sophia with a polite nod. You must be Miss Sophia Alexander. She straightened. And you are? The man your father has spent many years avoiding. His voice was calm. Too calm. I apologize for arriving without notice. He looked around the restaurant. It remains beautiful. My late wife had excellent taste. Robert's hands clenched. Chairman Kang noticed. He noticed everything. I assume you've received the foreclosure notice. Sophia frowned. How do you know about that? Because arrangements were made. What arrangements? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he slowly removed a thin envelope from inside his coat. He placed it gently on one of the tables. There is a solution. Sophia looked at her father. Robert's breathing became uneven. No, please, not her. Chairman Kang ignored him. The debt your father owes my family can disappear today. Hope flashed across Sophia's face. How? The older man met her eyes. Marriage. The room became silent. Sophia blinked. I'm sorry? My eldest son requires a wife. She laughed. Surely this was some twisted joke. I'm not following. The legal contract has already been prepared. He pushed the envelope toward her. If you marry my son, every debt connected to your family ends. No foreclosure, no collectors, no interest. The restaurant remains yours. Sophia looked from the envelope, to Chairman Kang, to her father. Nobody smiled. Nobody moved. They were serious. This isn't funny. It isn't intended to be. She shook her head. You expect me to marry a complete stranger? I expect you to make your own decision. I don't even know your son. You will. She looked at Robert. Dad? He couldn't meet her eyes. That silence answered everything. You knew. His whisper almost disappeared. They offered this before. You never told me? I refused. And now? Tears filled his eyes. I've run out of refusals. Sophia stepped away from both men. She couldn't breathe. Marriage? To erase a debt? Who still did things like this? This is insane. Chairman Kang remained perfectly composed. My son has no interest in romance. This arrangement benefits both families. What does he get? A wife. And I get the opportunity to keep your mother's legacy. His words landed exactly where they were meant to. The restaurant. Always the restaurant. She hated him for understanding that. I need time. You have until tomorrow evening. One day, the foreclosure process continues regardless. He placed a business card beside the envelope. When you've decided, call this number. Without another word, Chairman Kang turned and walked out. The bodyguards opened the car door before he reached it. Seconds later, the convoy disappeared down the rain-soaked street. Silence returned. Sophia slowly turned toward her father. You were really going to let me find out like this? Robert sat heavily in one of the dining chairs. He suddenly looked smaller than she'd ever seen him. I was praying they'd never come. She laughed through tears. They came. He nodded. They came. That night, long after closing, Sophia remained alone inside the restaurant. She walked from table to table, running her fingers across familiar wood, stopping at the old family photographs. One picture showed her mother holding Sophia as a little girl, both covered in flour after trying to bake bread. Another captured the restaurant's opening day. Everyone smiling, everyone believing life would only get better. She rested her forehead against the frame. What would you do, Mom? No answer came. Only silence. At midnight, she unlocked the office drawer. Inside sat the restaurant's financial records, employee salaries, supplier invoices, bank statements. Everything pointed toward the same unavoidable truth. Without help, the restaurant would be gone. She wiped away a tear, then reached for her phone. Her thumb hovered over Chairman Kang's business card. For nearly a full minute, she couldn't move. Finally, she dialed. The call connected almost immediately. A calm voice answered. Chairman Kang's office. Sophia closed her eyes. My name is Sophia Alexander. A pause. Yes, Miss Alexander. She swallowed hard. I'll marry him. The woman on the other end replied without emotion. The ceremony will take place in 3 days. The line disconnected. Sophia lowered the phone slowly. 3 days. She didn't even know what the man looked like. Outside, the rain continued to fall, as if mourning the life she'd just traded away. Chapter 2. 3 days passed in a blur. Sophia barely remembered sleeping. People she had never met suddenly appeared in her life, measuring dresses, arranging paperwork, confirming schedules, explaining legal documents she barely heard. Everything happened with terrifying efficiency. It was as if the Kang family had planned this wedding long before she had agreed to it. Meanwhile, Alexander's kitchen remained open. Customers continued laughing over bowls of spicy stew. Couples celebrated birthdays. Office workers hurried in for lunch. Nobody knew the owner's daughter was preparing to marry a complete stranger. Robert barely spoke. Every time Sophia looked at him, she saw the crushing weight of guilt on his face. He wanted to apologize. She knew that. But there were some mistakes words could never repair. The wedding was held at the Kang estate. It wasn't a church, nor a lavish hotel. It took place inside an enormous private garden overlooking the Han River, hidden behind towering stone walls and iron gates. Everything about the estate whispered old money, not flashy wealth, inherited power. Rows of black luxury vehicles lined the entrance. Men in tailored suits stood at attention with discreet earpieces. Even the gardeners moved with military precision. As Sophia stepped from the car, she felt as though she'd entered another country. Nothing here resembled the noisy warmth of her family's restaurant. Everything was quiet, controlled. Perfect. A woman dressed in an elegant cream-colored hanbok approached. "Miss Alexander." She bowed politely. "I'm here to escort you." Sophia nodded stiffly. They walked through immaculate gardens filled with carefully trimmed pine trees and stone lanterns. Not a single leaf lay out of place. Even nature seemed disciplined here. Inside the mansion, polished marble floors reflected crystal chandeliers overhead. Portraits of stern-faced ancestors lined the walls. Every servant lowered their eyes as Sophia passed. Nobody smiled. Nobody whispered. It felt less like a home, and more like a palace built on silence. She was led into a dressing room where 3 stylists waited. One adjusted her hair, another fixed the sleeves of her ivory wedding gown. A third carefully placed a simple pearl necklace around her neck. Unlike the extravagant dresses she'd imagined rich families preferred, this one was understated. Elegant, timeless, almost lonely. When they finished, they quietly stepped back. One of them handed Sophia a small mirror. She hardly recognized herself. She looked beautiful. She also looked like someone walking toward a life she hadn't chosen. A gentle knock came at the door. "The ceremony is ready." Soft instrumental music floated through the garden. Guests sat beneath white canopies. Business executives, politicians, judges, foreign diplomats, people whose faces Sophia recognized from newspapers. Yet the wedding itself remained strangely intimate. No laughter, no celebration, just quiet observation. As Sophia reached the front of the aisle, she finally saw him, Min-soo Kang. He sat beneath the floral arch in a custom-built black wheelchair. For a moment, everything else disappeared. She had imagined many things. An old man, a cruel-looking gangster, someone scarred beyond recognition. Instead, he was devastatingly handsome. His sharp features carried the calm confidence of someone accustomed to command. Dark hair neatly combed back, a perfectly tailored black suit, broad shoulders, strong hands resting calmly on the wheelchair's armrests. His expression revealed almost nothing. He wasn't staring at her, he wasn't smiling, he simply watched her approach with unreadable eyes. The wheelchair somehow didn't diminish his presence. If anything, it forced everyone else to come down to his level. He still dominated the space, without standing once. Sophia stopped beside him. For the first time, their eyes truly met. There was no pity in his gaze, no curiosity, just quiet observation, as though he were memorizing someone whose arrival had been inevitable. The officiant began speaking. His words drifted in and out of Sophia's awareness. Marriage, commitment, honor, family. She barely listened. Her attention kept returning to the man beside her. He hadn't said a single word, not one. Finally, the officiant turned toward him. "Mr. Kang, do you accept Sophia Alexander as your lawful wife?" Min-soo answered immediately. "I do." His voice surprised her. Low, steady, controlled. There wasn't the slightest hesitation. The officiant smiled politely before facing Sophia. "And do you?" She swallowed. This was the last chance. If she said no, Alexander's kitchen would disappear. Her mother's dream would vanish. She slowly closed her eyes. I do. The words tasted like surrender. The rings were exchanged. The documents were signed. There was no dramatic kiss. Only a respectful nod between husband and wife. Just like that, Sophia Alexander became Mrs. Kang. The reception lasted less than an hour. Guests congratulated Chairman Kang. Very few spoke directly to Sophia. Many simply looked at her with polite curiosity. An African woman marrying into one of Korea's most powerful families was clearly unexpected. Some smiled, others whispered. Sophia ignored them. She was more interested in her husband. Min-soo remained composed through every conversation. He greeted ministers, accepted congratulations, handled business discussions, all without raising his voice. Even seated, people naturally leaned toward him. Power didn't seem to come from his position. It came from certainty. He never rushed, never explained himself, never filled silence unnecessarily. Eventually, the crowd began to thin. Chairman Kang approached. You've both fulfilled your obligations. He looked first at Sophia. The debt has been erased. Then to Min-soo. The legal transfer has already been completed. Min-soo gave a single nod. No emotion, no celebration. Just acknowledgement. Chairman Kang left without another word. As he disappeared into the mansion, Sophia finally found herself alone with her new husband. The silence stretched between them. She cleared her throat. I suppose I'm your wife now. A faint corner of Min-soo's mouth lifted, not quite a smile. Almost legally. She blinked. That tiny hint of humor caught her off guard. I wasn't expecting you to joke. I wasn't joking. His face returned to its calm expression. Another awkward silence followed. Finally, Min-soo spoke again. You don't have to pretend. Pretend? To be comfortable. His eyes met hers. I know why you're here. Sophia froze. You do? You married me to save the restaurant. His tone carried no accusation, just fact. I accepted because it benefited my family. We're both adults. No reason to lie to each other. She stared at him. He wasn't angry. He wasn't bitter. He simply accepted reality. Oddly, that made her feel even worse. A sleek black sedan waited outside. Deacon Yoon stood beside it. Tall, broad-shouldered. His face carried the weathered calm of someone who had spent decades protecting dangerous people. He opened the rear door. Sir, Min-soo nodded. With practiced efficiency, he transferred himself from the ceremonial wheelchair into the customized vehicle. He refused assistance. Every movement was deliberate, controlled, clearly rehearsed over years. Only after he settled inside did Sophia climb into the opposite seat. The drive toward the main residence began. No one spoke. Rain tapped gently against the windows. City lights blurred past. Finally, Sophia broke the silence. Can I ask you something? You just did. She almost smiled. Another question. He nodded slightly. How long have you? She hesitated. Been in the wheelchair? His gaze remained fixed outside. 15 years? I'm sorry. So am I. No anger, no self-pity, just quiet truth. She wanted to ask what had happened, but something in his expression told her this wasn't the moment. Instead, they rode the rest of the journey in silence. The Kang residence was even larger than the ceremonial estate. This one felt lived in. Still immaculate, still intimidating, but warmer somehow. Books filled an entire library visible from the entrance. Fresh flowers decorated the hallways. Soft classical music drifted faintly from somewhere upstairs. A housekeeper greeted them. Welcome home, sir. Min-soo nodded, then looked toward Sophia. Your room has been prepared. She blinked. My room? You prefer separate rooms. It wasn't a question. He remembered exactly why she'd married him. She felt strangely embarrassed. You assumed that? I assumed correctly. She couldn't argue. I'll never enter your room without permission. You'll have complete freedom here. You may leave the estate whenever you wish. No one will stop you. His voice remained calm, almost considerate. It wasn't what she'd expected from a Mafia boss. A housekeeper carried Sophia's luggage upstairs. The room she entered was larger than her entire apartment back home. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a moonlit garden, a private sitting area, a fireplace, a grand piano. Fresh lilies filled crystal vases. Everything was luxurious. Everything felt unfamiliar. She slowly unpacked her suitcase. One dress, several cookbooks, a framed photograph of her mother. She placed the picture carefully on the bedside table. For the first time all day, the room felt slightly less empty. As she opened the bottom drawer of an antique wooden dresser, something slid loose from beneath the lining. A photograph. Old, slightly faded. She picked it up. A younger Minsu, standing, not sitting. Standing tall beside a black luxury sedan, one arm draped casually around Deacon Yoon's shoulder. He couldn't have been older than 25. He looked happy, genuinely happy. She smiled faintly. So you could walk? Then something else slipped from behind the photo. A torn page, yellowed with age. Its edges had clearly been ripped from a larger ledger. Several handwritten names filled the page. Delivery records. Dates, amounts. One name immediately caught her attention, Robert Alexander. Her father's name, written in bold black ink. Beside it, a date. Exactly 15 years ago, the same year Minsu had said he lost the use of his legs. Sophia's heartbeat quickened. She looked back and forth between the photograph and the ledger page, then toward the closed bedroom door. A cold realization settled over her. This wasn't just a marriage born from debt. Somehow, long before she had ever met Minsu Kang, her father had already become part of the story that put him in that wheelchair. Chapter 3. Sophia didn't sleep. The torn ledger page remained on the bedside table beside the old photograph of Minsu, standing beside a sleek black sedan. Every few minutes she picked it up again, hoping she'd somehow misread it, but the ink never changed. Robert Alexander. The date. 15 years ago. Exactly the same year Minsu had lost the use of his legs. Her father had lied. Not just about the debt, about everything. The first rays of sunlight slipped through the curtains. A gentle knock sounded on her bedroom door. Mrs. Kang? The elderly housekeeper's soft voice came from outside. Breakfast is ready, Mrs. Kang. The title still sounded foreign. Sophia glanced once more at the photograph, before sliding both it and the ledger page back into the drawer. Whoever had hidden them clearly hadn't intended for anyone to find them. Especially not her. The dining room could have seated 30 people. Only 2 places had been set. Minsu was already there, dressed in a charcoal gray suit despite it being barely 8 in the morning. A tablet rested beside his coffee. 3 folders sat neatly stacked before him. He looked less like someone eating breakfast, and more like a CEO preparing for a board meeting. Without looking up, he spoke. Good morning. Morning. She took her seat opposite him. Servants immediately began placing food on the table. Fresh fruit, eggs, toast, rice porridge, kimchi, soup. Everything looked immaculate, yet nobody spoke. Even the servants moved silently. When the last dish was served, they disappeared as quietly as they'd arrived. The room fell still. Sophia finally broke the silence. Do they always leave? Minsu looked up. They're trained not to linger. It feels, she searched for the right word, lonely. A tiny pause. It is. His honesty surprised her again. He returned to reading his tablet. No attempt to deny it. No defensive explanation. Just acceptance. Halfway through breakfast, another man entered. Late 50s. Elegant black suit, silver-rimmed glasses, he bowed deeply. Good morning, sir. Mr. Han. Minsu signed one of the folders without even opening it. The hospital approved today's donation. The orphanage project has also been completed. Sophia blinked. Donation? Orphanage? Mr. Han continued. The rehabilitation center asked whether you'll attend next month's opening ceremony. Minsu shook his head. Remain anonymous. Yes, sir. The secretary bowed again before leaving. Sophia stared after him. Finally she asked, You own rehabilitation centers? No. You donate to them. Why? He looked at his untouched coffee. I know what they're missing. He said nothing else, but she understood. An hour later, Sophia wandered through the mansion. She wasn't searching for anything in particular, mostly trying to convince herself this place could someday feel like home. It couldn't, not yet. Every hallway seemed endless, every room larger than necessary. One contained nothing but shelves of books. Another held antique Korean pottery. A music room housed a grand piano that looked as though no one had touched it in years. She stopped before a framed family portrait. Chairman Kang stood proudly in the center, His late wife beside him, a much younger Min-soo, stood confidently behind them. Tall, broad-shouldered, laughing, actually laughing. She leaned closer. There was another younger man beside Min-soo, his brother perhaps. The frame contained no names, only faces frozen in a happier time. What happened to all of you? You shouldn't be in this wing. The sudden voice made Sophia jump. She turned. Chairman Kang stood at the end of the hallway, hands clasped behind his back. His expression remained unreadable. I'm sorry. I was only looking around. I know. He slowly approached the portrait. His gaze lingered on it. My wife insisted this photograph remain here. You miss her. I miss who this family was before. For a brief second, the powerful patriarch looked like nothing more than an old widower. Then the moment disappeared. He returned to being Chairman Kang. You'll eventually learn this house has rules. I'll try. He nodded once. There is one rule I hope you'll obey. She waited. Do not ask about the accident. Her heartbeat quickened. Why? Because the past has already destroyed enough lives. I know curiosity when I see it. His voice remained calm. My son has spent 15 years rebuilding himself. Do not make him relive the night everything changed. Sophia lowered her eyes. I understand. But she didn't. Not really. And the warning only made her more determined to learn the truth. That afternoon, Deacon Yoon waited beside the garage. He was polishing one of the black sedans. His movements were slow, methodical, like someone who believed every task deserved perfection. Sophia approached carefully. Mr. Yoon? He looked up. You may call me Deacon. I wanted to ask something. His face remained polite. If I can answer. She hesitated. How long have you worked for the Kang family? 32 years. You've known Min-soo since he was young? I taught him how to drive. A faint smile crossed the older man's face. He learned too quickly. That tiny smile vanished almost immediately. Sophia took a chance. Were you there, the night of the accident? His hands stopped moving. For the first time since she'd met him, she saw emotion. Pain. Real pain. Several long seconds passed. Finally, I was driving. Her chest tightened. You were? I was the only other survivor. Silence. Neither of them moved. Finally, he quietly resumed polishing the car. I have work to finish. His voice had closed. The conversation was over. That evening, rain returned. Heavy rain. The kind that wrapped the entire estate in darkness. Sophia couldn't sleep again. She wandered downstairs around 2 a.m. The mansion felt completely different at night. Larger, almost haunted. As she passed the library, she noticed a faint light beneath the door. Someone was awake. She gently pushed it open. Min-soo sat alone near the fireplace. A blanket covered his legs. An untouched glass of whiskey rested beside him. He wasn't reading. He wasn't working. He simply stared into the fire, lost somewhere far away. He hadn't noticed her. She quietly turned to leave. The blanket slipped from his lap. Without thinking, Sophia walked over and picked it up. She carefully draped it back across his legs. Their eyes met. For a second, neither spoke. I didn't mean to wake you, she whispered. You didn't. You couldn't sleep? No, she nodded. Neither could I. Another silence settled between them. Strangely, it wasn't uncomfortable this time. Just quiet. Real. Min-soo looked back toward the fire. Most people stare. She frowned. What do you mean? The chair. They either pretend not to notice, or they can't stop looking. His voice carried no bitterness. Just observation. You haven't. Sophia answered honestly. I noticed. I just stopped seeing it. His eyes slowly returned to hers. Something changed. Almost too subtle to detect. The wall between them cracked. Just a little. He looked away first. You should get some rest. So should you. A tiny exhale escaped him. Almost a laugh. I'll try. She smiled for the first time since arriving. Good night, Min-soo. It was the first time she'd used his name, he noticed. Good night, Sophia. The next morning, Sophia decided to unpack the last remaining box from her luggage. Most of it contained cookbooks from the restaurant. One belonged to her mother. The handwritten recipes were stained with years of cooking. As she searched for a place to store them, she noticed a narrow hallway she'd somehow missed before. At its end stood an old office. The door wasn't locked. Inside, dust-covered shelves lined with aging files, financial records, old photographs, business ledgers. Everything smelled of paper and time. She wasn't looking for trouble, only an empty shelf. But as she reached toward one cabinet, something caught her eye. A drawer, locked. Unlike every other drawer in the room, a tiny brass label had almost faded away. Incident reports. Her heartbeat quickened. She slowly touched the handle, locked. Whatever was inside, someone had wanted forgotten, or hidden. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Sophia stared at the drawer for several long seconds, then quietly slipped the small keyring the housekeeper had given her from her pocket. One by one, she began trying the keys. Click. The lock turned. She slowly pulled the drawer open. Inside lay dozens of neatly labeled folders. One sat on top. Its cover had yellowed with age. Stamped in red ink were the words, "Vehicle Incident, Confidential and Mean." And beneath it, in smaller type, driver, Deacon Yoon. Her fingers froze just above the file. She knew, once she opened it, there would be no pretending she hadn't gone looking. Chapter 4. Sophia stared at the folder for several long seconds. The rain outside pounded against the mansion's tall windows, each crack of thunder making the old office feel even more isolated. Her fingers hovered over the cover. She knew this wasn't simply invading someone's privacy. It was crossing a line she could never uncross. Chairman Kang had warned her, "Leave the past alone." Min-soo had never spoken about it. Deacon Yoon had shut down the moment she asked. Every instinct told her to close the drawer and walk away. Instead, she opened the file. The first page contained nothing remarkable. Date, time, weather conditions, vehicle registration numbers, route information. It read like any ordinary police report. Date, October 18th, 15 years earlier. Weather, heavy rain. Location, Riverside Expressway. Passengers, Kang Min-soo, Deacon Yoon. Sophia continued reading. Then she reached the section marked Summary. At approximately 9:42 p.m., the convoy encountered an explosion originating from a commercial delivery truck that entered the northbound lane against traffic. Her breathing slowed. Explosion? She had imagined a car accident. Not this. She turned the page. Photographs, twisted steel, burned pavement, shattered glass covering nearly the entire roadway. One luxury sedan had been ripped almost completely apart. She covered her mouth. How had anyone survived? The next page listed casualties. 3 security personnel, 2 drivers, all deceased, 1 survivor, Deacon Yoon. 2nd survivor, Min-soo Kang. Condition, critical, multiple fractures, spinal trauma, emergency surgery, permanent neurological damage possible. Sophia stopped reading. Her eyes drifted toward the fireplace across the room, toward the image she'd seen only hours earlier. Min-soo sitting quietly beneath a blanket, staring into the flames as though he'd accepted a life no one would have chosen. She suddenly understood why. Another document had been clipped beneath the medical report. It wasn't official. Someone had typed it privately. Possible motive: business retaliation. Information leak regarding convoy route. Internal betrayal suspected. The words sent a chill through her. Internal betrayal. She turned another page. A list of names appeared beneath the heading. Employees interviewed, drivers, security personnel, business associates. Then, near the bottom, she saw it. Robert Alexander status. Questioned. Not charged, released. Her heart slammed against her ribs. No. There had to be some mistake. She kept reading. Robert Alexander had provided information to investigators regarding a business meeting held earlier that week. He denied knowledge of the convoy's route. No evidence was found linking him directly to the attack. Investigation suspended. Suspended, not closed. Footsteps echoed somewhere outside the office. Sophia snapped the folder shut. Someone was coming. She quickly slid it back into the drawer, just as the footsteps passed the hallway. Silence returned. She exhaled slowly. Her hands were shaking. She locked the drawer again before quietly leaving the office. For the rest of the day, she couldn't look at her husband. Every time Min-soo appeared, all she could picture was the wrecked car, the burning highway, the hospital report, her father's name. She wanted to believe Robert had simply been questioned because he knew someone involved. Nothing more. But doubt had taken root, and doubt was impossible to silence. That evening, Chairman Kang hosted a formal family dinner. It wasn't a celebration, it was tradition. The long dining table stretched almost the length of the room. Only 4 people sat there. Chairman Kang, Min-soo, Sophia, an elderly aunt who spoke very little. The atmosphere remained painfully formal. Every course arrived with perfect timing. Every servant disappeared the instant their work was finished. Halfway through dinner, Chairman Kang finally addressed Sophia. "I've heard you enjoy cooking." "Yes, my mother taught me." He nodded once. "The restaurant survives because of your mother. It survived because she refused to quit." Chairman Kang looked at her for a long moment. Persistence is admirable, but sometimes persistence becomes denial. Sophia understood exactly what he meant. He wasn't talking about restaurants. He was talking about the past. Before she could respond, Min-soo calmly set down his chopsticks. "My wife isn't on trial." The room became still. Chairman Kang looked at his son. "I made no accusation. You implied one. I offered advice." "You've offered enough." The older man's expression hardened slightly. For a brief second, Sophia expected an argument. Instead, Chairman Kang simply resumed eating. So be it. No raised voices, no dramatic confrontation, yet the tension could have shattered glass. Sophia stole a glance at Min-soo. He continued eating as though nothing had happened, but he'd defended her. Without hesitation, without expecting gratitude. She wasn't sure anyone had done that for her before. After dinner, Min-soo rolled himself toward the library. Sophia caught up with him near the hallway. "You didn't have to do that." He looked up. "My father enjoys testing people." "I've noticed?" "He was testing whether you'd defend yourself." You answered instead. "I dislike unnecessary games." His answer was so matter-of-fact that she couldn't help smiling. "You really don't waste words, do you?" "They're expensive," she laughed. Actually laughed. The sound surprised both of them. For the first time since their marriage, the mansion felt a little less cold. Later that night, Sophia stood on the balcony outside her room. The city lights shimmered far below. She pulled out her phone. Her thumb hovered over her father's contact. She needed answers. She deserved answers. The phone rang 4 times. "Hello?" Robert sounded exhausted. "Dad. Sophia. How are they treating you?" "I'm fine." Liar. Silence. She didn't waste another second. "Were you questioned after Min-soo's accident?" "Were you questioned after Min-soo's accident?" "Nothing. Dad, answer me." His breathing became uneven. "Who told you that?" "So it's true." You told me the debt was financial." "It was." "No, it wasn't." Another silence. Longer this time. Finally Robert whispered, "Where did you hear this?" "I found records." His breathing stopped. "Sophia, tell me the truth." "I can't." "You can't?" "I promised." "To who?" "I can't." Her voice cracked. "Did you know the people who attacked him?" "No." "Did you tell someone where he'd be?" "No." The answer came too quickly, too rehearsed. She closed her eyes. "You hesitated." "I'm begging you, leave this alone." "No. For your own safety." "My safety? It's bigger than you think." Before she could ask another question, the line went dead. Robert had hung up. Sophia remained frozen on the balcony. The cool night air suddenly felt much colder. Her father had lied again. Not directly, but enough. Enough to confirm he was hiding something. Behind her, she heard the soft sound of wheels on polished wood. She turned. Min-soo had stopped at the open balcony doors. "I didn't mean to interrupt." She quickly slipped the phone into her pocket. "You didn't." He studied her face. "You've been crying." She instinctively wiped beneath one eye. "I didn't realize." He looked toward the city lights. "Sometimes people cry because they're hurt." His voice remained quiet. "Sometimes. They cry because they're hiding something." Sophia's heart skipped. Did he know? Could he somehow see through her already? He didn't ask another question. Instead, he simply nodded once. "Good night, Sophia." He turned his wheelchair and disappeared back into the hallway, leaving her alone with one terrifying realization. If she didn't uncover the whole truth soon, the secret her father had buried for 15 years was going to destroy this marriage before it had ever truly begun. Chapter 5. For the next 3 days, Sophia avoided asking questions. Not because her curiosity had faded, but because she had begun noticing something far more unsettling. The man she'd married wasn't the monster she'd prepared herself to live with. If anything, everyone else seemed far more afraid of him than he was of himself. Every morning at exactly 6:30, Min-soo left the mansion. Every evening he returned before sunset. No delays. No excuses, no wasted movement. The estate operated like a clock, its rhythm built around him. Yet despite leading one of the most powerful organizations in Korea, he spent surprisingly little time barking orders. Most meetings lasted less than 15 minutes. He listened more than he spoke. When someone tried to exaggerate a report, he quietly asked for the facts. Nothing more. No shouting, no threats, no dramatic displays of power. His silence was somehow more intimidating than anger. One Friday afternoon, Sophia wandered into the estate's kitchen. It was enormous. Nearly as large as her family's restaurant. Several chefs immediately stopped working. One hurried toward her. "Mrs. Kang," she smiled politely. "I was wondering if I could cook today." The chefs exchanged nervous glances. "I'm not sure that's allowed." "Allowed? Chairman Kang prefers meals prepared by staff." Sophia laughed softly. "I'm not asking Chairman Kang." Before anyone could answer, another voice came from behind. "Let her cook." The chefs immediately bowed. "Yes, sir." Min-soo rolled quietly into the kitchen. He glanced at Sophia. "You miss your restaurant." It wasn't a question. She nodded. "I miss feeling useful." Without another word, he motioned toward the stove. "The kitchen is yours." An hour later, the mansion smelled completely different. Instead of expensive imported spices and carefully measured sauces, the air filled with garlic, Scotch bonnet peppers, grilled fish, fresh herbs, warm bread. The rich aroma drifted through the hallways. Servants began smiling without realizing it. Even the security guards outside noticed. One quietly whispered, "It smells comforting." Sophia couldn't help smiling. Cooking had always been the one place where life made sense. Measurements, timing, patience. Unlike people, food usually rewarded honesty. Min-soo entered just as she finished plating dinner. He stopped beside the counter. The scent seemed to catch him off guard. "What is it?" "Pepper soup. And fried plantains." He studied the bowl for a moment. "I've never had Nigerian pepper soup. You have now." She placed the spoon beside him. He looked at it, then at her. "I should warn you. I'm difficult to impress." She folded her arms. "I wasn't trying to impress you. I'm trying to feed you." For the first time, he smiled, a real one. Small, but genuine. It transformed his entire face. For a brief moment, Sophia caught a glimpse of the man from the old photograph, the one who used to laugh. He took one spoonful, then another. Neither of them spoke. Finally, "This is excellent," she grinned. "I know. You expected praise?" "I expected honesty. You received it." He continued eating. Every bite, he finished the entire bowl, then quietly pushed it toward her. "May I have more?" She laughed. "So the difficult-to-impress Mafia boss wants seconds?" "I'm hungry." "No, you like it." A tiny pause. "Both." That evening, Sophia carried 2 bowls of fruit into the library. She found Min-soo reviewing contracts. His reading glasses rested low on his nose. She blinked. "You wear glasses?" "For small print." "I didn't know. You never asked." "Fair enough." She placed one bowl beside him. "You've worked since breakfast." "So have you?" "I was cooking." "You worked." Another simple answer. Another unexpected kindness. As Min-soo reached for a document on the far side of the desk, a file slipped from his lap. It landed on the floor several feet away. Instinctively, Sophia bent to retrieve it. Before she could pick it up, Min-soo suddenly leaned forward. Too far. His wheelchair shifted. His hand missed the floor. For one frightening second, he nearly fell completely out of the chair. Sophia dropped to her knees. "I've got you." She gently steadied his shoulder. His body froze. Not from pain. From pride? Slowly, carefully, she helped him settle back into the chair. Neither spoke. Several long seconds passed. Then he quietly said, "Thank you." "No problem." Another silence. Finally, he looked away. "I dislike people helping me." "I noticed. They usually help because they pity me." She shook her head. "I helped because gravity doesn't care how proud you are." He blinked. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. A short laugh, low and genuine. It echoed softly through the library. Sophia found herself smiling again. "You know," she said, "you're easier to talk to than I expected. So are you." That night, Sophia couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. Not because she'd helped him, but because she'd seen something no one else seemed allowed to witness. Minsu hated appearing vulnerable, not because he feared weakness, because he feared pity. There was a difference. She understood it now. The following afternoon, Sophia received an unexpected visitor. Chairman Kang. He stood outside the small greenhouse behind the estate. "I hear my son," smiled. She blinked. News travels quickly. It never used to happen. She wasn't sure how to answer. Chairman Kang looked toward the garden. When Minsu was 26, he smiled often. He laughed loudly. He raced sports cars. He climbed mountains. He believed nothing could stop him. The older man's voice softened. After the explosion, he stopped laughing. Sophia remained silent. He survived. But survival is not always living. For several moments, neither spoke. Finally, Chairman Kang looked directly at her. "Whatever you are doing, continue." She frowned. "I thought you didn't trust me." "I don't." The answer came immediately. "But, my son slept through the night yesterday." The first full night's sleep he's had in months. Sophia felt something tighten in her chest. She hadn't known. Chairman Kang turned to leave, then paused. Without looking back, he said quietly, "Just remember, the past has sharp teeth. It bites everyone who reaches into it." He walked away, leaving Sophia standing alone among the flowers. That evening, Deacon Yoon was waiting beside the garage. He held a small cardboard box. "I believe these belong to you." Sophia opened it. Inside were several cookbooks she'd accidentally left in the kitchen. "Oh, thank you." As she reached for them, one thin notebook slipped onto the ground. Its pages scattered across the driveway. Both of them knelt instinctively to gather them. One loose sheet slid beneath Deacon Yoon's shoe. He picked it up, then froze. It wasn't one of Sophia's recipes. It was the torn ledger page she'd hidden inside the notebook. His eyes locked onto the familiar handwriting. His face lost all color. For several long seconds, neither of them moved. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, Deacon Yoon asked, "Where did you get this?" Sophia slowly stood. She looked directly into his eyes. "I think it's time someone stopped lying to me." Deacon Yoon stared at the page, then toward the mansion, toward the study where Minsu was working. His shoulders sagged with the weight of 15 years. Quietly, almost to himself, he whispered, "I prayed this day would never come." Chapter 6. Deacon Yoon didn't answer immediately. The evening breeze carried the scent of pine trees through the estate, but neither of them seemed to notice. He continued staring at the torn ledger page in his hand. His grip tightened. When he finally looked up, Sophia saw something she'd never expected from the man: fear. Not fear for himself. Fear for Minsu. "Come with me," he said quietly. He led her away from the mansion, away from the security cameras, past the gardens, beyond the greenhouse. At the far edge of the estate stood a small wooden pavilion, overlooking a quiet lake. The city lights shimmered in the distance. No guards, no servants, only silence. Deacon Yoon sat heavily on one of the wooden benches. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked old, very old. "I've carried this for 15 years, he said. "I suppose another hour won't kill me." Sophia remained standing. "I don't want half the truth. You'll get the whole truth." He took a long breath. "Your father wasn't a criminal." Sophia frowned. "But he wasn't innocent either." Her heart sank. 15 years ago, your family's restaurant was struggling." She nodded slowly. "I know. It wasn't just struggling. It was dying. There was a large development company buying properties around your neighborhood. They wanted the entire block." Sophia remembered hearing fragments of those stories as a child. Small businesses disappearing one after another. They offered everyone money. Most accepted. Your parents refused. "They didn't want to lose the restaurant." She smiled faintly. "That sounds like my mother." "It does." Deacon Yoon nodded. "Unfortunately, someone else wanted that property even more. A rival syndicate." The words hung in the air. They weren't interested in restaurants. They wanted control of the entire district. They needed one last piece of land. Your family's building. Sophia's stomach tightened. "So they threatened my father?" They threatened everyone. They burned stores, destroyed businesses. People disappeared. She swallowed hard. My father never told me. He wanted to protect you. Deacon looked toward the dark lake. Your father became desperate. He couldn't pay his debts. He couldn't fight the syndicate. He couldn't save the restaurant. So, he came to Chairman Kang. The Kang organization? Yes, they weren't saints, but they kept order. They protected businesses under their watch. In exchange, they expected loyalty. So they lent him money? They did. Enough to save the restaurant. But debt creates chains. Sophia listened without interrupting. Months later, the rival syndicate approached Robert. They already knew he'd borrowed from us. They made him an offer. Deacon's voice became quieter. If he told them which road Minsu's convoy would use after a business meeting, they would erase his debt. Sophia immediately shook her head. No, my father would never. He refused. Relief washed over her, then disappeared. For nearly 2 weeks. What changed? They kidnapped one of your restaurant's employees. Her breath caught. They beat the young man nearly to death. They left him outside your restaurant before sunrise. They said, Deacon closed his eyes for a moment. The next body will belong to your daughter. Sophia's knees weakened. She slowly sat down. They threatened. Me? You were 13. They knew your father loved you more than anything. Tears filled Sophia's eyes. So what did he do? Deacon answered without looking at her. He broke. He gave them the convoy route. But he begged them not to hurt anyone. They promised they only wanted to intercept business documents. He believed them. He believed they would simply rob us. Silence. The lake reflected the moonlight like shattered glass. Finally, Sophia whispered, They lied. Deacon nodded once. They planted explosives inside a delivery truck. They never intended to steal documents. They intended to kill Minsu. For several seconds, Sophia couldn't breathe. The images from the incident report flooded back. The twisted metal, the fire, the dead guards, Minsu's shattered spine. Oh God, she covered her face. My father, he didn't know. He truly didn't. But that doesn't erase what happened. Deacon continued quietly. The explosion killed 5 men. It nearly killed Minsu. I dragged him from the burning car myself. His hands began trembling. I still remember him asking, Did everyone make it? Deacon's voice cracked. I lied. I told him yes. I couldn't tell him the truth while he was bleeding in my arms. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Finally, Sophia asked, So why wasn't my father arrested? Because Chairman Kang found him first. Her head snapped up. What? The police never discovered enough evidence. But Chairman Kang did. He knew exactly who leaked the convoy route. Sophia stared at him. Then why wasn't my father killed? A sad smile crossed Deacon's face. Because of Minsu. He stopped his father. Sophia blinked. What? When Minsu woke up after surgery, he asked who betrayed him. Chairman Kang told him. And? He ordered men to eliminate Robert. What happened? Deacon looked directly into her eyes. Minsu said no. Silence. He said, if he wanted me dead, he would have taken the money and disappeared. Instead, he stayed to protect his family. That isn't the decision of an evil man. Sophia felt tears spill down her cheeks. He spared him? Yes. But Chairman Kang couldn't simply forgive everything. So, the debt remained. Not money. A debt of silence. Your father surrendered his business records. He cooperated with every investigation. He spent 15 years paying back what he could. But some debts, Deacon looked toward the mansion, can never truly be repaid. Sophia wiped her eyes. So why the marriage? Deacon didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his jacket. He removed a folded piece of paper. It was old, yellowed. He handed it to her. What is this? Read it. She unfolded it carefully. It was handwritten. The signature at the bottom caught her attention first. Minsu Kang her. Eyes widened. It was written after he left the hospital. She began reading. If Robert Alexander dies, his daughter will inherit a hatred she never chose. End the blood between our families with me. No child should pay for the sins of a parent. If there is ever a chance to settle this debt without creating another, choose that instead. Sophia stopped reading. Her vision blurred. He wrote this 15 years ago? Deacon nodded. He never expected to meet you. He didn't even know your name. The realization hit her all at once. The marriage hadn't been Chairman Kang's idea alone. Minsu had left behind instructions. Long before Sophia became part of his life. Long before he ever saw her face. He had already decided. No innocent child should inherit revenge. A branch snapped somewhere behind them. Both turned instantly. Someone stood in the shadows beneath the trees, too far away to recognize. The figure remained motionless for only a second, then disappeared into the darkness. Deacon was already on his feet. "Stay here." He rushed toward the trees. Minutes passed, then he returned alone. No one. Did they hear us? I don't know. For the first time that evening, real concern crossed his face. If someone was listening, this family is about to face another storm. Sophia looked toward the mansion in the distance. A single light burned in the window of Minsu's study. He was still working, completely unaware that the truth he'd lived beside for 15 years was finally beginning to surface. Chapter 7. Sophia barely remembered walking back to the mansion. The letter remained folded tightly inside her coat pocket. Every step felt heavier than the last. Her father had betrayed Minsu, not out of greed, not out of hatred, out of fear. Yet 5 innocent men had still died, and the man she had married had paid for it with his legs. Worse still, he had spared Robert's life. Long before he even knew Sophia existed. The thought hollowed her out. The mansion was quiet. Most of the lights had been turned off. Only the study at the end of the west corridor remained illuminated. Minsu was still awake. She paused outside the door. She could hear pages turning. The soft tapping of a keyboard, nothing more. He was working, completely unaware that, only an hour earlier, the foundation of his marriage had cracked beneath his feet. Her hand reached for the doorknob, then stopped. Not yet. She wasn't ready. She quietly walked away. That night, sleep refused to come. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined 13-year-old herself laughing inside Alexander's kitchen, while, somewhere across the city, a young Minsu lay unconscious in an operating room. Their lives had collided years before they ever met. Neither of them had known. Only their parents had. The next morning, a convoy left the estate shortly after breakfast. Minsu had a meeting in the city. As always, Deacon Yoon drove. Sophia watched from the front steps until the last black sedan disappeared beyond the gates. Only then did she take out her phone. She dialed her father. He answered on the second ring. "Sophia? We need to meet." His voice immediately grew tense. "Did something happen?" "Yes." A pause. "Where are you?" "The restaurant." "I'll be there in 30 minutes." Alexander's kitchen looked exactly the same. The familiar smell of grilled fish and fresh bread greeted her the moment she stepped inside. Customers filled half the tables. Waitresses hurried between booths. Life continued as though nothing had changed. Her chest tightened. This place had always felt safe. Now, it felt haunted. Robert was waiting in the office. The moment he saw her face, he knew. "You found out." She closed the office door behind her. "I know about the convoy." His shoulders sagged. "I know about the explosion." He slowly sat down. "I know you gave them the route." Robert covered his face with both hands. For several seconds, he didn't speak. Finally, his voice broke. "I've hated myself every day since." Sophia remained standing. "Tell me everything. I already know enough." "No, I want to hear it from you." Robert nodded weakly. "I thought they were going to rob him. They swore nobody would get hurt. You believed them?" "I wanted to." His eyes filled with tears. "I was terrified. They showed me your school. They showed me photographs of you. They knew what time you walked home. They knew your classroom." Sophia felt a chill run through her. "They told me, 1 route in exchange for your daughter's life." He looked up at her. "What would you have done?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again. There was no easy answer. "I never meant for anyone to die. I know. I wanted to confess. I tried, but Chairman Kang found me first." "What did he do?" Robert laughed bitterly. "Nothing. He simply sat across from me. For almost an hour. He didn't threaten me. He didn't shout. When he finally stood up, he said, 'My son wants you to live with what you've done.'" Robert's voice cracked. "Sometimes, I wished he'd just killed me." Sophia's anger began giving way to something more painful. Pity. Not forgiveness. Never that. Just pity. She had never seen her father look so broken. So why didn't you tell me? He wiped his eyes. Because I wanted you to have one thing untouched by my mistakes. The restaurant. You were supposed to inherit hope, not guilt. She slowly reached into her pocket. She unfolded Minsu's handwritten letter and placed it on the desk. Robert stared at it. His hands immediately began trembling. He kept it. You've seen this before? Robert nodded. He gave me a copy, the day I signed the agreement. Tears spilled freely down his face. I've carried it in my wallet for 15 years. You still have it? Robert reached into his old leather wallet. From behind a faded photograph of Sophia as a little girl, he carefully removed another folded paper. It was worn thin from years of being opened. The same letter, the same handwriting, the same signature. He saved me, Robert whispered, and every single day since. I've wondered if I deserved it. Silence settled over the tiny office. Finally, Sophia asked the question she'd been avoiding. Does Minsu know that I'm your daughter? Robert looked away. No. He only knows the debt belonged to me. He never asked about my family. He never wanted revenge. He simply wanted the debt to end. Her phone vibrated. A message from Deacon Yoon. Where are you? Another message arrived almost immediately. Sir returned home early. Then, Chairman Kang knows someone accessed the incident files. Sophia's heart skipped. How? She hadn't told anyone. Another message appeared. Please return immediately. She looked up. I have to go. Robert stood quickly. Sophia, she paused. If Minsu finds out, his voice shook. Don't let him become the man his father wanted him to be. She looked at him for a long moment. I don't think that's the man he is. Then she left. Back at the estate, the atmosphere had changed. Security guards stood at every entrance. Staff whispered nervously. Something had happened. As Sophia stepped inside, the housekeeper hurried toward her. Mrs. Kang, Sir is looking for you. Her stomach tightened. Where is he? In the study. She walked down the long hallway. The study door stood open. Inside, Minsu sat behind his desk. Chairman Kang stood beside the window. Neither man spoke as she entered. The silence felt heavier than any shouting could have. Finally, Chairman Kang placed a thin folder on the desk. I locked those files for a reason. Sophia's heart pounded. I'm sorry. You searched for answers. I did. He looked disappointed. Not angry. Just tired. You should have asked. Would you have told me? No. At least he was honest. Minsu finally spoke. His voice remained calm. So, you know. Sophia looked at him. His face revealed nothing. I know about the explosion. He nodded once. And, she swallowed. I know my father was questioned. Another nod. Anything else? The room suddenly felt too small. She looked from Minsu to Chairman Kang, then back again. The truth sat on the edge of her tongue. She could tell him now. Everything. Or, she could protect her father for a little longer. It would be the easiest lie she'd ever told, and the hardest truth she'd ever spoken. Minsu watched her quietly, not with suspicion, not with anger, simply waiting, trusting her answer. That trust hurt more than any accusation ever could. Chapter 8. Sophia couldn't do it. Not yet. The words sat in her throat, refusing to come out. She looked into Minsu's eyes and saw only patience. No pressure, no accusation, just quiet expectation. It made lying feel unbearable. I know enough to understand why no one wanted to talk about it, she said softly. Chairman Kang studied her face for a long moment. Then he picked up the folder from the desk. Curiosity has consequences, Mrs. Kang. I understand. I hope you do. Without another word, he left the study. The heavy door clicked shut behind him. Silence settled over the room. Only Sophia and Minsu remained. He closed the file he had been reading and folded his hands together. You don't have to apologize. She blinked. I went through your family's private records. You were looking for answers. I still crossed a line. So did the people who hid the truth. His answer caught her off guard. For the first time, he looked directly at her. If I were in your position, I'd probably have done the same. Guilt tightened around her chest. She didn't deserve his understanding. Not while she was still hiding the biggest piece of the truth. Minsu wheeled himself toward the window. Outside, the estate gardens glowed beneath the afternoon sun. When I woke up in the hospital, I couldn't feel my legs. His voice was steady, almost detached. As strange as it sounds, that wasn't the worst part. Sophia remained silent. The worst part was everyone looking at me differently. He rested one hand against the window frame. My father looked at me like something precious had broken. My employees looked at me with pity. My friends stopped inviting me hiking. He smiled faintly. Even strangers held doors I could easily open myself. I disappeared. The wheelchair became the only thing people noticed. Sophia slowly walked closer. I noticed something else. He glanced at her. "What? You're stubborn." A tiny smile appeared. "I've heard that before. And you're kinder than you pretend to be." He looked away again. Kindness is expensive in my world. So is loneliness. Neither of them spoke after that. Sometimes silence said enough. That evening, Sophia returned to the kitchen. Cooking helped her think. She chopped onions without noticing the tears, stirred soup without tasting it. Her mind remained trapped inside one question. How long could she keep this secret? Not forever. Certainly not after everything Deacon Yoon had told her. The truth was already pressing against the walls of the house. Sooner or later, it would break through. As dinner simmered on the stove, Deacon Yoon quietly entered the kitchen. He waited until the chefs had left before speaking. "You met your father." It wasn't a question. She nodded. He admitted everything. Deacon closed his eyes briefly. "I expected he would. He never wanted anyone to die." "I know." She lowered the wooden spoon. "What do I do now?" For the first time, the old bodyguard didn't have an answer. "I've protected Minsu since he was a boy. I've also watched your father punish himself every day." He sighed heavily. "There are no winners left in this story." Sophia leaned against the counter. "If I tell Minsu, I'll destroy him." Deacon shook his head. "No. You'll destroy the illusion. He already lives with the truth. What he doesn't know is that the woman he's beginning to trust is connected to it." Her eyes filled with tears. "That's exactly what I'm afraid of." Deacon looked toward the hallway to make sure they were alone. Then he spoke more quietly. "There's something else you should know." "What?" "The official investigation never found who ordered the bombing." Sophia frowned. "I thought it was the rival syndicate. We know they carried it out, but we never proved who paid them. You think someone hired them?" "I know someone did." He looked toward the ceiling, toward Chairman Kang's office upstairs. "Minsu believes the man responsible is already dead." But Chairman Kang, he never stopped looking. A cold chill crept over Sophia. "So the story isn't over." Deacon's expression darkened. "No, I don't think it ever was." The following morning, the Kang family hosted a charity gala. Politicians, business leaders, foreign investors. The mansion buzzed with activity. Sophia wore a simple navy evening gown. Minsu, as always, looked effortlessly composed in a tailored black tuxedo. As guests filled the ballroom, Sophia noticed something surprising. People genuinely respected him. Not because they feared him, because they admired him. An elderly businessman approached. "Chairman Minsu, my granddaughter graduated from university thanks to your scholarship." "Thank you." Minsu simply bowed. No speech. No attempt to take credit. Just gratitude. Later, a young woman in a wheelchair approached with her mother. She couldn't have been older than 16. "Mr. Kang, you probably don't remember me. You visited me after my surgery." Minsu smiled warmly. "I remember. You told me life wasn't over." The girl wiped away a tear. "I believed you." Sophia stood several steps away, watching. He had never mentioned any of this. He had quietly spent years helping people rebuild lives that looked like his. Not for publicity, not for reputation, simply because he understood. Her heart ached. As the evening continued, Sophia slipped onto one of the balconies for fresh air. She needed a moment alone. The ballroom music drifted softly through the open doors. She rested both hands on the stone railing. "You've been avoiding me." The familiar voice made her turn. Chairman Kang stepped onto the balcony. "I've been busy." "No, you've been thinking." He joined her at the railing. "You remind me of my wife." Sophia looked surprised. She also believed every burden belonged on her shoulders. He watched the lights of Seoul stretching across the horizon. It nearly destroyed her. After a long pause, he asked quietly, "Tell me something honestly." She nodded. "When you look at my son, do you see the wheelchair first?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she smiled softly. "No. What do you see?" She looked back through the glass doors. Min-soo was laughing quietly with the young girl he'd encouraged years earlier. "I see a man who refuses to let pain decide who he becomes." Chairman Kang followed her gaze. For the first time since she'd met him, his stern expression softened. "Then perhaps this marriage wasn't as transactional as either of you believed." Inside the ballroom, a waiter hurried toward Deacon Yoon. He whispered something urgently into his ear. The veteran bodyguard's face changed instantly. He looked toward the entrance, then toward Min-soo. Without saying a word, he walked quickly across the room. Sophia noticed. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Moments later, Deacon leaned down beside Min-soo's wheelchair and whispered into his ear. Min-soo's calm expression disappeared. Not into anger, into something colder, more dangerous. He slowly looked toward the ballroom entrance. Sophia followed his gaze. An elderly man had just stepped inside. His expensive suit couldn't hide the fear on his face. The moment he saw Min-soo, he stopped walking. Across the room, Deacon whispered just loudly enough for Sophia to hear 3 words. "He's still alive." End of Chapter 8. Chapter 9. The ballroom fell strangely quiet. Not because anyone had announced the man's arrival. Most guests didn't even recognize him. But those who did, stopped talking, stopped smiling, stopped breathing. The elderly man stood frozen near the entrance, clutching an ebony cane with both hands. His expensive navy suit fit perfectly, yet it couldn't hide the slight tremor in his shoulders. His silver hair was neatly combed back. His face carried the weary look of someone who hadn't truly slept in years. Sophia had never seen him before, yet the fear in the room told her he mattered, a great deal. Min-soo didn't move. His expression became perfectly still, too still. Sophia had learned enough about him to know that silence wasn't always peace. Sometimes, it was the calm before a storm. He looked toward Deacon Yoon. "You're certain?" Deacon nodded once. "I confirmed it myself." Min-soo continued watching the man across the ballroom. "I buried him." The words were barely above a whisper. Sophia frowned. "Buried?" Chairman Kang approached from across the room. Unlike everyone else, he wasn't surprised. He looked furious. "Why are you here?" The old man lowered his head respectfully. "I came to surrender." A ripple of whispers spread through the guests. "Surrender? To whom?" Chairman Kang took another step forward. "I warned you never to return." "I know, and yet here you are." The elderly man slowly lifted his eyes. "I've run out of places to hide." Min-soo finally spoke. "Everyone leave." His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Within seconds, the ballroom emptied. Politicians, business leaders, staff, musicians. Everyone quietly disappeared without question. Only 5 people remained. Chairman Kang, Min-soo, Sophia, Deacon Yoon, the old man. When the doors closed behind the last guest, silence settled over the ballroom. Min-soo looked at the stranger. "I attended your funeral." The old man's lips trembled. "It was necessary. You let the world believe you were dead. I had no choice." Chairman Kang's patience snapped. "You always had a choice." His voice echoed through the empty hall. "You chose money. You chose betrayal. You chose cowardice." The old man lowered his head again. "I know." Sophia finally gathered enough courage to ask, "Who is he?" No one answered. Instead, Deacon Yoon stepped beside her. Quietly, so only she could hear, he said, "He was the accountant." The accountant. He handled financial records for every organization operating in this district. Sophia frowned. "I don't understand." He knew where every dollar moved, every payment, every secret. Realization slowly dawned. He knows who paid for the bombing. Deacon nodded. "Exactly." The old accountant slowly reached inside his jacket. Every guard in the room instinctively tensed. Instead of a weapon, he removed a thick brown envelope. "I've protected this for 15 years. He carefully placed it on a nearby table. "I should have come sooner." Chairman Kang laughed bitterly. 15 years too late. "I know. I was afraid. You should have been." Minsu rolled forward until he stopped only a few feet away. His eyes never left the old man's face. "Tell me." The accountant swallowed. "I wasn't hired to kill you. I was hired to erase records." "What records?" "The payments. The convoy schedules. The land acquisitions." He looked toward Sophia briefly, then back to Minsu. "I discovered someone inside our own network was working with the rival syndicate." Sophia felt her heartbeat quicken. "An insider." "You knew who it was?" Minsu asked. "I suspected." "Who?" The old man closed his eyes. "I needed proof, and I found it." He rested one trembling hand on the envelope. "Everything is in here." Chairman Kang took a step toward the table. Before he could touch the envelope, the ballroom lights suddenly went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Someone screamed outside. A loud crash echoed from the entrance. Glass shattered. "Down!" Deacon Yoon shouted. He threw himself between Minsu and the doorway. A gunshot exploded through the darkness. Then another. The sound echoed across the marble floor. Sophia instinctively dropped behind a stone pillar. Her heart pounded so violently she could barely hear. Another shot. A body hit the floor. Someone groaned in pain. Emergency lights flickered on. Everything was bathed in dim red light. The accountant lay motionless beside the table. A crimson stain spread rapidly across his white shirt. The brown envelope had fallen from his hands. Papers scattered across the marble floor like snow. A masked gunman sprinted toward the shattered window. Before he could escape, Deacon Yoon tackled him with surprising speed. The two men crashed into a row of chairs. The gun fired again, this time into the ceiling. Security guards flooded into the ballroom from every entrance. Within seconds, the attacker was pinned to the ground. Sophia scrambled toward the accountant. "No." She dropped beside him. Blood covered her hands. He struggled to breathe. His eyes searched desperately until they found Minsu. With his remaining strength, he grabbed Minsu's sleeve. His voice was barely audible. "It wasn't Robert?" Minsu leaned closer. "Who?" The old man's lips moved. He forced out one final name. Then, his hand slipped away. His eyes stared silently toward the ceiling. He was gone. The ballroom became deathly still. No one spoke. No one moved. Minsu slowly looked down at the scattered documents lying across the floor. One page had landed face up. It contained a series of bank transfers, one signature, one approval stamp, one familiar surname. Not Alexander, not Kang, another family entirely. Chairman Kang picked up the page, his face drained of color. "No," he whispered. "Impossible." Sophia stared at him. "You know that name?" The chairman slowly closed his eyes. When he spoke, his voice carried more grief than anger. "I trusted him." The room seemed to shrink around them. Whatever name was written on that page, it had shaken even the most powerful man Sophia had ever met, and for the first time since this story began, she realized something terrifying. Her father had caused the tragedy, but he hadn't been the mastermind. Someone else had spent 15 years hiding behind Robert Alexander's guilt. Someone who had been much closer to the Kang family all along. End of Chapter 9. Chapter 10. No one spoke. The only sound inside the shattered ballroom was the faint hiss of a broken chandelier swinging overhead. Security guards dragged the wounded gunman to his knees. His mask had fallen away. He couldn't have been older than 30. Blood trickled from a cut above his eyebrow. Yet even with two guards holding him down, he smiled. It wasn't the smile of a man who expected to live. It was the smile of someone who believed he'd already won. Chairman Kang stared at the document in his hand. His fingers trembled. Sophia had never imagined a man like him could look shaken. "What name is on that paper?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer. Instead, he handed the page to Minsu. Minsu scanned it once, then again. His jaw tightened. Not with rage, with disbelief. Impossible. Sophia stepped closer. "Minsu." He slowly lifted his eyes to hers. "It says the final payment for the attack was authorized by Director Choi." "Director Choi?" Sophia repeated. "I've never heard that name." Chairman Kang gave a bitter laugh. "You wouldn't have. He spent 20 years sitting at my right hand." Sophia frowned. "He worked for your family? He wasn't just an employee." Chairman Kang's voice sounded hollow. "He helped build this organization. He attended my wedding. He held Minsu as a baby. The words landed like stones. He was family. Deacon Yoon slowly released the captured gunman into the guard's custody. His expression darkened. I told you he couldn't have acted alone. Chairman Kang nodded slowly. I simply prayed you were wrong. Sophia looked down at the scattered documents. Most were covered in blood. Some listed bank accounts. Others contained shipping records. Then she noticed one photograph. It showed a younger Director Choi shaking hands with a man whose face had been circled in red ink, the rival syndicate's leader. The date beneath the photograph was 2 weeks before the bombing. Her stomach turned. They planned this together, Deacon answered quietly. It appears so. The captured gunman suddenly laughed. Everyone turned toward him. You people still don't understand. Deacon grabbed him by the collar. What don't we understand? The young assassin spat blood onto the marble floor. You think killing the accountant changes anything? It doesn't. He wasn't the last witness. Min-soo's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? The gunman smiled again. There was another. The room froze. Another witness? Chairman Kang stepped forward. Who? The gunman shrugged. I don't know. They never told us. But they've been looking for that person for 15 years. Sophia felt her pulse quicken. They? The assassin looked directly at Min-soo. The people who wanted you dead, they're still alive. Before anyone could ask another question, the gunman bit down hard. Deacon reacted instantly. Stop him. Too late. Foam gathered at the corners of the assassin's mouth. His body convulsed violently. Within seconds, he collapsed. A hidden poison capsule. Silence filled the ballroom once again. Deacon checked for a pulse. Nothing. He slowly stood. He's dead. Chairman Kang closed his eyes. They planned for this. They always do. For the first time in years, the old patriarch looked defeated. Not because another man had died, because whoever had orchestrated the attack had just erased another trail. An hour later, police officers quietly secured the ballroom. The official report would describe the accountant's death as an assassination. The truth would remain inside the Kang family. Sophia stood alone on the balcony overlooking the estate. The cool night air did little to calm her thoughts. Footsteps approached behind her. Min-soo. He rolled beside her without speaking. For several minutes, they simply watched the lights of Seoul. Finally, Sophia broke the silence. I'm sorry, he looked at her. For what? For all of this. He gave a small shake of his head. You didn't build this. No, but I'm standing in the middle of it. He considered her words. So am I. She glanced down at his hands, resting on the armrests of his wheelchair. They're saying your father wasn't responsible. They're saying mine wasn't the mastermind. Does that change anything? Min-soo answered honestly. It changes everything. He looked toward the distant city. For 15 years, I believed I knew who had destroyed my life. And now? Now I don't know who my real enemy is. Inside the mansion, Chairman Kang sat alone in his study. The blood-stained document lay open before him. His eyes remained fixed on one sentence. Approved by Director Choi. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Come in. Deacon Yoon entered quietly. We searched Director Choi's old residence. And? It was empty. How long? Someone cleared it out months ago. Chairman Kang slowly leaned back. So? They knew this day was coming. I believe so. Deacon hesitated before adding. There was one thing we did find. He placed a faded photograph on the desk. Chairman Kang picked it up. It showed Director Choi standing outside a warehouse. Beside him was a young man, perhaps 20 years old. The face looked strangely familiar. The chairman's expression hardened. I know him. Deacon frowned. Who is he? Chairman Kang looked toward the dark window. His voice was barely above a whisper. Min-soo's cousin. Outside, Sophia's phone vibrated. A text message. There was no number. Only the words. Your father wasn't the first betrayal. He won't be the last. If you want the truth, come alone. Attached beneath the message was a photograph. It had been taken that very evening. Someone had been watching her, watching the Kang family, watching all of them. The war everyone believed had ended 15 years ago had never truly ended. It had only been waiting. End of Chapter 10. Chapter 11. Sophia stared at the screen. The photograph attached to the message had clearly been taken from outside the ballroom. It showed her standing beside Min-soo, only minutes before the accountant was killed. Whoever had sent it had been watching. Not from years ago, from tonight. She looked around the balcony instinctively. The gardens below were quiet. Security guards patrolled the estate. Nothing looked out of place. Yet for the first time since arriving at the Kang residence, she no longer felt protected. She felt hunted. "Something's wrong." Minsu's voice broke the silence. She quickly locked her phone. "It's nothing." The lie came too easily. Minsu studied her for a moment, then looked away. "I've learned something." "What?" "When people say it's nothing, it's almost always something." Despite everything that had happened, she almost smiled. "You really notice everything." "I have to." His answer wasn't pride, it was survival. She slipped the phone back into her pocket. Not yet. She couldn't show him the message. Not until she understood who had sent it. If this really involved the people behind the bombing. Walking blindly into another trap could destroy everything. Later that night, Sophia sat alone in her bedroom. She opened the message again. There was still no number, only an encrypted sender ID. She zoomed in on the attached photograph. Something caught her attention. In the reflection of one ballroom window, a black SUV sat parked beyond the estate gates. Its headlights were off, almost hidden by trees. She frowned. She had seen that vehicle before. Where? Then she remembered. Outside Alexander's kitchen. The morning Chairman Kang had offered the marriage. The same model. The same missing hubcap on the rear wheel. Her pulse quickened. Someone had been watching her long before the wedding. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." Deacon Yoon entered quietly. "I thought you might still be awake. I don't think anyone in this house is sleeping tonight." He nodded. "Probably not." He noticed the tension in her face. "You've remembered something." She hesitated, then turned the phone toward him. Without a word, he studied the photograph. His expression changed immediately. "I know this vehicle." "You do?" He zoomed in farther. "The damaged wheel." He looked up. "I've been seeing this SUV for weeks." Sophia's stomach tightened. "You never reported it?" "I did. Our security team searched every time. They never found it. So someone has been following the estate. For at least a month." Deacon slipped the phone back to her. "Do not reply to that message." "I wasn't planning to." "Good." He turned toward the door, then paused. "And don't go anywhere alone." The following morning, Chairman Kang called an emergency family meeting. Only 4 people sat inside the conference room. Chairman Kang, Minsu, Sophia. Deacon Yoon. A large map of Seoul covered one wall. Several locations had been circled in red. Chairman Kang pointed to the oldest circle. The warehouse where the accountant was photographed. Another. The site of the bombing. Another. Alexander's kitchen. Sophia looked up sharply. "Our restaurant?" Chairman Kang nodded. Every confirmed suspect visited this neighborhood. Her chest tightened. "My father may have been watched much longer than he realized." Minsu quietly turned another document toward Sophia. This was recovered from the accountant's files. She looked down. It was another ledger, different handwriting, different names. Most of it made little sense. Until she reached one familiar address, Alexander's kitchen. Across from it, instead of money, someone had written 2 words, "Asset protected." What does this mean? No one answered immediately. Finally, Deacon Yoon spoke. "I think your family's restaurant wasn't simply collateral. It was being watched." "Why?" Chairman Kang folded his hands. "Because someone believed your father knew more than he admitted." Sophia felt the room tilt. "My father kept saying he only gave them the route." "He may have been telling the truth," Minsu nodded slowly. "But someone else believed he knew the mastermind." The meeting ended with more questions than answers. As everyone prepared to leave, Minsu stopped beside Sophia. "Walk with me." They moved slowly through the estate gardens. Cherry trees swayed gently in the morning breeze. For several minutes neither spoke. Finally Minsu said, "When we married, I expected a contract. So did I. I didn't expect—" He searched for the right words. "To begin trusting someone." Her heart skipped. She looked at him. He wasn't looking back. His gaze remained fixed on the stone path ahead. "I don't trust easily. I've noticed. I trusted the wrong people once." His voice carried no anger, only experience. "I don't intend to make that mistake again." Sophia felt tears threatening to rise, because she knew he was trusting her now, and she still hadn't told him everything. That afternoon, she couldn't bear the wait anymore. She drove alone to Alexander's kitchen. The lunch crowd had just begun to thin. Robert looked surprised to see her. "You came back. I need one answer." He immediately understood. What answer? She closed the office door behind them. "Did you ever meet Director Choi?" The color drained from Robert's face. His lips parted slightly. He whispered one word, "Yes." Sophia's heart pounded. "You know him." Robert slowly lowered himself into his chair. "I thought he was helping me." "What do you mean?" "He introduced me to the people who loaned me money." "The Kang organization?" Robert shook his head. "No. He introduced me to the rival syndicate." Silence. "He told me they were businessmen. He said they could save the restaurant." Robert buried his face in his hands. "I was a fool." Sophia's breathing became uneven. "So Director Choi set all of this in motion." "I didn't know." Robert looked up desperately. "I swear to you, Sophia, I didn't know he worked for both sides." Before she could respond, the restaurant's front door burst open. A young waiter ran toward the office. "Mr. Alexander, what is it?" There's someone here asking for you." Robert frowned. "Who?" The waiter swallowed hard. "He says he worked with Director Choi." The room went completely still. 15 years of silence had finally started talking. End of Chapter 11. Chapter 12. The young waiter stood frozen in the doorway. "Mr. Alexander, the man says he won't leave." Robert slowly stood from his chair. His face had gone pale. "What's his name?" The waiter swallowed. "He wouldn't say. He only told me to give you this." He handed Robert a small white envelope. Robert stared at it. His hands began shaking before he even opened it. Sophia noticed. "Dad." He slowly unfolded the paper. His knees nearly gave way. "What is it?" Robert couldn't answer. He simply handed the note to Sophia. Only one sentence had been written across the page. 15 years is long enough. Tonight, everyone pays. No signature, no address, nothing else. A cold chill spread through Sophia's body. Outside the restaurant, a black sedan pulled away from the curb. By the time Sophia rushed outside, it had already disappeared into traffic. She looked up and down the street. Nothing. Someone had been close enough to watch them. Again. Back inside, Robert sank into his chair. "They've found me." "Who?" "I don't know." His voice cracked. "But whoever killed the accountant knows I never told the whole story." Sophia frowned. "What aren't you telling me?" Robert closed his eyes. "I met Director Choi 3 times. You said once." I lied. Her heart sank. "The third meeting, he asked me something strange." "What?" "He asked whether Minsu ever changed his route without telling anyone." Sophia frowned. "And?" "I told him only Deacon Yoon would know that." The room became silent. Robert looked horrified. "I didn't realize what I'd said. I thought it was ordinary conversation." But afterward, Director Choi smiled. "It was the last time I ever saw him." Sophia suddenly understood. The convoy wasn't attacked because they knew the road. They attacked it because they knew the exact time. Robert nodded weakly. They had someone feeding them information. Her phone vibrated. "Deacon Yoon." She answered immediately. "Mrs. Kang." His voice was urgent. "Where are you?" "At the restaurant." "You need to come back." "What happened?" A long pause. Then, "Someone leaked today's security schedule." Her blood ran cold. "What?" There was another attempt. She stopped breathing. "Is Minsu okay?" "He's alive. But someone inside our organization betrayed us." Sophia looked at her father, then at the note. Everything suddenly became clear. This wasn't about the past anymore. Someone was cleaning up loose ends. The accountant, Robert, perhaps even Minsu. She drove faster than she ever had before. By the time she reached the estate, security vehicles surrounded the entrance. Armed guards searched every arriving car. The mansion no longer looked like a home. It looked like a fortress preparing for war. Inside the study, Chairman Kang stood over a map covered in photographs. Deacon Yoon's arm was bandaged. A bullet had grazed him. Minsu sat behind his desk. Calm. Almost too calm. He looked up as Sophia entered. "You went to your father." It wasn't a question. She nodded. "I needed answers." "Did you find them?" She looked around the room, then at Deacon, then at Chairman Kang, finally, at Minsu. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it. This was the moment. If she stayed silent, someone else would tell him. If she spoke, she might lose him forever. She slowly walked toward him. "There is something I've hidden from you." The room became completely still. "My father," she swallowed, "is Robert Alexander." No one moved, no one spoke. Chairman Kang slowly closed his eyes, as though he'd expected this day. Minsu remained perfectly still. His face revealed nothing. Sophia forced herself to continue. "He confessed everything. He never wanted you dead. He believed they were going to rob your convoy. He lived with that guilt every day." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I should have told you the moment I found out. I was afraid. I wasn't protecting him anymore. I was protecting myself." Silence, heavy, endless. Finally, Minsu spoke. His voice was barely above a whisper. "You knew, and you still came home." She nodded. "Because I couldn't let anyone else tell you." Another long silence. Then, very slowly, Minsu turned toward Deacon Yoon. "Bring Robert Alexander here." Chairman Kang looked at his son. "You've made your decision?" Minsu's eyes never left Sophia. "Yes." His voice had become cold, not cruel, resolute. "This ends tonight." Sophia's breath caught. Outside, the engines of black SUVs roared to life as members of the Kang organization prepared to leave the estate, for the first time since their marriage. Sophia didn't know whether she had just saved her husband or condemned her father. End of Chapter 12. Chapter 13. The engines faded into the night. From the study window, Sophia watched 6 black SUVs disappear beyond the estate gates. Each one carried armed members of the Kang organization. Each one was headed for Alexander's kitchen. Her legs felt weak. She turned toward Minsu. "Please." He didn't answer. Instead, he quietly rolled toward the fireplace. His face remained unreadable. Only after the door closed behind the others did he finally speak. "You knew for how long?" His voice was calm, too calm. "Since I found the incident report." "How many days?" 7. He nodded once. 7 days. No accusation, no anger, just disappointment. It hurt far more. "I wanted to tell you. So why didn't you?" "I was afraid." "Of me?" "No." She wiped away her tears. "I was afraid that once you knew, you'd never look at me the same way again." Minsu looked into the fire. "You were right." The words struck her like a slap. Not because they were cruel, because they were honest. At that same moment, the convoy arrived outside Alexander's kitchen. Robert was waiting. He had already locked the restaurant. The handwritten sign on the front door simply read, "Closed tonight." He wasn't surprised when the SUVs stopped. Deacon Yoon stepped out first. Robert gave a tired smile. "I suppose it's time." Deacon nodded. "It is. I won't run." "I know." Robert took one last look at the restaurant. The old wooden sign, the faded brick walls, the kitchen where his wife had spent most of her life. Then he quietly locked the front door. For the final time. An hour later, Robert entered the Kang estate. Not in handcuffs. Not dragged by force. He walked in on his own. His shoulders were straight. His face carried the peace of a man who had stopped running. Sophia rushed toward him. "Dad," he smiled sadly. "You told him." She nodded. "I'm sorry." He gently touched her cheek. "No, I'm proud of you. You chose truth." "It's what your mother would have done." Chairman Kang entered the hall. The study. No one argued. The room felt heavier than ever before. Minsu remained behind his desk. Robert stood before him. For nearly a full minute, neither man spoke. Finally, Robert bowed deeply. Not the polite bow of greeting. The full bow of a man surrendering everything. "I destroyed your life." His voice trembled. "I have no excuse. I was a coward. I believed evil men, and innocent people died." He slowly sank to his knees. "I have carried this shame for 15 years. If taking my life will finally repay that debt, I won't resist." Sophia gasped. "Dad, no." She rushed toward him, but Robert gently stopped her. "This is mine to carry." Minsu watched him silently. His eyes drifted toward the old scars on his own hands. Then back to Robert. "When I woke up, I hated you." Robert closed his eyes. "I know." I imagined killing you. I know. I imagined making you suffer. I know. Another silence. Then Minsu quietly asked, "Do you know why I didn't?" Robert looked up. "Because you were better than me." Minsu slowly shook his head. "No. Because hatred would have chained me to that hospital bed forever." The room became still. I lost my legs. I refused to lose myself too. Tears streamed down Sophia's face. Chairman Kang looked away. Even Deacon Yoon lowered his head. Minsu wheeled himself closer, stopping directly in front of Robert. "You owe a debt." Robert nodded. "I do. But it isn't paid by dying." Robert frowned. "It is paid by telling the truth." Chairman Kang looked sharply at his son. "You would let him live?" Minsu turned toward his father. "For 15 years. We've punished the wrong thing, my injury." He touched the armrest of his wheelchair. "This isn't the debt. The debt is the lie." Robert slowly lifted his head. "What do you want me to do?" Minsu answered without hesitation. "Tomorrow morning, you will confess. To the police, to the media, to everyone. You will tell the world exactly what happened. You will surrender the restaurant's ownership to the Victims' Compensation Fund. You will spend the rest of your life making sure the families of the men who died never need to beg for help." Robert's eyes filled with tears. "I will. I swear it." Chairman Kang stepped forward. "And if he refuses?" Robert answered before Minsu could. "I won't." He looked at Sophia. "I've lied enough." The next morning, news cameras crowded outside Alexander's kitchen. Police vehicles lined the street. Customers gathered in confused silence. Robert stood behind a simple wooden podium. His hands shook as microphones surrounded him. Sophia stood beside Minsu several feet away. Neither of them spoke. Robert took a deep breath. Then, for the first time in 15 years, he told the truth, not part of it, all of it. He admitted accepting money. He admitted revealing information. He admitted that his choices had led to innocent deaths. He admitted that another man had manipulated him. He accepted responsibility without asking for sympathy. When he finished, there was complete silence. Then, he removed the old restaurant sign with his own hands. Alexander's Kitchen, the name his wife had loved, the name Sophia had fought so hard to protect. He placed it gently on the ground. Tears rolled freely down Sophia's face. The restaurant would survive. But it would never again belong entirely to her family. The debt had finally been paid. As reporters rushed toward Robert, Sophia turned to Minsu. She reached for his hand, then stopped. She wasn't sure she had the right. To her surprise, Minsu closed the distance himself. His fingers gently wrapped around hers. Not tightly, not romantically. Simply, without hesitation. It was the first time he had reached for her, and somehow, that meant more than any declaration of love. End of Chapter 13. Chapter 14. 6 months later, spring had returned to Seoul. Cherry blossoms drifted through the morning air, covering the estate gardens in soft shades of pink. The mansion felt different now. Quieter, lighter. The silence no longer carried secrets. It carried peace. Robert Alexander had kept every promise. He pleaded guilty in court. He accepted his sentence without appeal. The sale of Alexander's Kitchen, along with the family's remaining assets, established a compensation fund for the families of the 5 guards who had died in the convoy attack. Not once did he ask for forgiveness. He simply worked to earn the right to regret. Chairman Kang had changed as well. No one would have called him warm, but he no longer looked at Sophia as the daughter of the man who had destroyed his son's life. He looked at her as family. One afternoon, he quietly handed her a small wooden box. Inside was the old restaurant sign, Alexander's Kitchen. She looked up in surprise. "I thought it had been destroyed." Chairman Kang shook his head. "Some things deserve to be remembered." Tears welled in her eyes. "Thank you. For your mother," he replied softly. The investigation into Director Choi exposed a network of corruption that had operated for years. Those responsible were arrested. The truth that had hidden in the shadows for 15 years finally stood in the light. For the Kang family, justice arrived late, but it arrived. Life slowly became ordinary, and ordinary turned out to be beautiful. Sophia filled the mansion with laughter that had once been absent. She argued with the chefs about recipes. She convinced Deacon Yoon to try spicy Nigerian jollof rice. He nearly choked on the first bite, then quietly asked for a second serving. Even Chairman Kang pretended not to enjoy it, while asking for another helping. For the first time in years, the dining table sounded like a family. Min-soo had changed too. He smiled more, worked less, lived more. Some mornings, Sophia found him in the gardens reading, instead of sitting behind endless reports. "You've become lazy," she teased. "I married a woman who gives orders." "I learned from the best." He raised an eyebrow. "My father?" She laughed. "No. You." One rainy afternoon, they visited the rehabilitation center Min-soo had quietly funded for years. Children raced through the halls. Some walked with braces, others rolled confidently in wheelchairs. Every single one greeted Min-soo by name. "Mr. Kang, you're back." Sophia watched as he spent the afternoon listening to their stories. Not as a benefactor, as one of them. She suddenly understood something. He had never let his wheelchair define him. He had simply refused to let it define anyone else. As they prepared to leave, the chief therapist approached them. "I've been looking for you." She handed Min-soo a folder. The latest scans. Min-soo glanced at it, then quietly handed it to Sophia. She opened it, her eyes widened. The nerve regeneration. The therapist smiled. "It's responding. It isn't a miracle, and we can't promise anything. But we think it's time." "Time for what?" "To try standing." Sophia looked at Min-soo. He looked almost frightened. More frightened than he had been facing armed men. "I've fallen before," he admitted. The therapist smiled gently. "Then we'll help you get back up." Inside the therapy room, parallel bars stretched across the floor. The entire staff gathered quietly. No one spoke. No one wanted to interrupt the moment. Sophia stood just behind him. "You don't have to do this today," he looked back at her. "Yes, I do." With the therapist on one side and Sophia on the other, Min-soo gripped the bars. His arms trembled. His breathing grew heavy. Slowly, painfully, he pushed upward. His legs shook violently. For one terrifying second, nothing happened. Then, he rose. Not completely, not steadily, but enough. Enough to stand. For the first time in 15 years, Min-soo Kang was standing. Tears streamed down Sophia's face. "So, you've been looking down on me all this time," she whispered through a laugh. He laughed too, a deep, genuine laugh. "I've missed this view." His legs weakened. Before he could fall, Sophia caught him. Neither of them cared that everyone was watching. That evening, they returned to the estate gardens, the same place where they had once walked in silence. The cherry blossoms danced around them. Min-soo reached into his jacket. He removed a small velvet box. Sophia blinked. "You already married me." "I know." He opened it. Inside lay the simple wedding ring she had worn on the day of their contract marriage. "I never asked you," her breath caught. He looked into her eyes, not as a mafia boss, not as a man bound to a wheelchair, simply as a man in love. "Sophia Alexander, you married me because you wanted to save your family. But today, I'm asking without contracts, without debt, without guilt." He slipped the ring gently back onto her finger. "Will you choose me, just because you love me?" She didn't answer with words. She stepped forward, wrapped her arms around him, and kissed him. Not out of obligation, not out of gratitude, not because the past had disappeared, but because, despite everything it had taken from them, they had found a future worth protecting. Above them, the cherry blossoms continued to fall, like the pages of an old story finally coming to an end. Some debts can never truly be repaid. Some scars never completely fade. But love has a quiet way of teaching wounded hearts to stand again.